This video and all pretty much, I think, sums up to what a lot of my videos are about. I think it gives a pretty clear definition, like where we're at right now and where we're heading to.
The black box on your Instagram. I got a question for you. What have you accomplished? What has been accomplished by your virtue signaling? What has been accomplished by all of your protesting and looting and vandalizing property? What have you accomplished? Somebody riddle me this. How in the world, how on God's green earth are you protesting the death of one man, which leads to you destroying the lives of multiple other black people, multiple black businesses, destroying the economic success of multiple cities all around the country? And you have fervor, you have energy, you have passion when the black man get killed by a white police officer. Yet, when the brother kill a brother, you don't care. When the police officer, former police officer, 77-year-old man, retired captain on the police department, done spent 38 years of his life protecting and serving, show up to a call for service, because you know when you a cop and when you've served people that long, it ain't just a job, it's in your spirit. Show up to protect the pawn shop, being a good Samaritan, a good citizen, a good man, a good father, a good grandfather, a good leader in the community. And you show up because you want a TV, and you take that man's life, and y'all video record him losing his life. Nobody renders aid, and the man who did this probably ain't never gonna get caught because y'all won't even snitch. What have you accomplished? What have you accomplished? I'm not understanding the logic behind the way people act today in America. I'm sick of seeing black folks, and I'm white people, I'm gonna get to you next. I'm sick of seeing black folks being so disingenuous, being dishonest about their affairs, that they have the whole world kissing their toenails for falsehoods. Most black people that are honest, I'm not talking about black people that want to be down with the crew, you want to hang out, you want to still keep your black card. I'm talking about brothers that are honest. No, you don't have no negative interaction with police. You may not like that you were stopped on the traffic stop because you know you were speeding, but you didn't think he caught you, but he caught you, and then you want to argue with him as if it didn't happen. Most black people do not have negative interactions with police officers. 44 million black people in the United States of America, and new 2019, 9 African Americans were shot who were unarmed. Everybody knows that just because you're unarmed don't mean you're not a threat. But for the sake of argument, only 9 people have had a negative interaction with a police officer that led to their death out of 44 million black people in this country. Go to 2020, this year. There's been 3, and Breonna Taylor is one of them. And she got caught up in a warrant in the crossfire for miscommunication with her boyfriend, who she didn't tell that she was knee-deep in the drug game, and that they're either going to be the police or some thugs coming to take drugs out of the house. He ends up shooting a police officer, and she gets caught in the crossfire. She's added to the statistic. Outside of her, it's been 2. Out of 44 million black people in the United States of America, there's been 2 that have been shot unarmed. And the other 2 people were doing something they had no business doing. And I'm not saying it's justified or not. I don't know. They didn't get charged, so I'm assuming that the justice system determined that it was justified, like all the other justified shootings. But y'all haven't accomplished nothing. You're ruining the reputation of your own people. People looking at TV, watching black people beat the snot out of people, rob businesses, kill other black people with no mercy, pulling guns on black women in parking lots because you're so desperate and deranged and animalistic. And let me get to you white people. White people, I need you to hear me real clearly. You better stop with all of that BS virtue signaling. You saying you have white privilege don't somehow make me feel any better about how racist you are. The fact that you believe in white privilege shows me that you are cognitively dissonant from reality. You are telling black people, when you say you have white privilege or acknowledging your white privilege, or that you have it better in life, that you're better than black people, that you're going to go further in life than black people, and that black people need you to somehow acknowledge and give them a handout so they can have a decent life. You're not operating with common sense. And all this virtue signaling is not doing nothing but perpetuating, inflaming, and fanning the fire. Y'all fanning the fire. Y'all getting on y'all knees on the sidewalk to confess your white privilege. And if none of y'all was racist and none of y'all owned slaves and none of y'all was alive during Jim Crow, then what are you doing? What are you actually accomplishing? Y'all out here protesting in solidarity, putting black little screens on your Instagram account to show solidarity with who? Some of y'all don't even know who George Floyd was. A man that has been in and out of prison, a man that does not care and have total disregard for the life of other people, i.e. when he was arrested for pulling a gun on a pregnant woman during a home invasion. And then he's found outside of the state where he lived at, where his wife and his kid, or at least his girl and his kid, live in Houston, Texas. He's in Minnesota on methamphetamines, resisting arrest from the police officers, trying to buy stuff with counterfeit money. And y'all out here giving life and limb to support somebody you don't even know, to support this idea of oppression in the community that is unsubstantiated. I've been black my whole life, grew up in an all-black community. We not oppressed. We're not oppressed. We oppress ourselves through cultural dynamics that we refuse to identify. It ain't the white man, it ain't the system. The system will make you rich if you do the right things. How do you think Jay-Z? How do you think P. Diddy? How do you think Michael Jordan? How do you think LeBron James? How do you think Madam C.J. Walker in the early 1900s was the first female millionaire to ever exist out of any race? How do you think that Ben Carson got to where he's at? One of the greatest men to ever live. Ben Carson has done things that nobody has done in the whole world. Came from a single parent home. Mama couldn't read. The system ain't against you. You are against you. People are brainwashing you to be against you. They're brainwashing you to be against them. So then they appear to be against you. Wake up, people. I make these videos. I go to war with y'all, for y'all, so that people can wake up like I did. I was a victim of that mentality. Oh, the white man this, the police this, and then I grew up and I grew out. I grew up and I got saved. God changed my heart and I can see things clearly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. We're not wrestling against racism in this country. We're wrestling against good and evil. People that are good. People that are evil, they're going to find a reason to not like you and to do harm to you. Whether it's your race, your nationality, your city, your town, what ward you in. Come on, people. Come on, man. Let's put all this BS behind us. Let's put it all down. Let's stop with the madness. Let's stop with the hatred of the president. Let's stop with the hatred of the white man and the police. Put it down and go look in the mirror. And you talk to that man in the mirror, that woman in the mirror, and you ask them simple questions. What have I done to make my life better? What have I done to make others' lives better who live around me? What do I plan to do in the future to leave this planet better than it was when I got here? Ask yourself those questions in the mirror. And when you have an adequate answer to those questions and you put that into action, the world will be a better place. If every person does that, everybody, no matter what you did, even if you're in a prison cell, look in your mirror in the prison cell and you ask yourself those questions. And when you have a solution to those questions and you have action behind those questions, the world will be a better place. And you don't need to worry about the government. You don't need to worry about systematic oppression. You need to worry about white privilege and all that other stuff that man put on top of your head to keep you down. You ain't have to worry about all that stuff. You can be free and you can be prosperous. I'm done.
It's some pretty inspiring words that he said. The only thing I can think to really add, and he almost went there, but is a Bible quote that we struggle against powers and principalities, spiritual wickedness in high places. And that's some of the things I'm going to be going over in this video, that, we really need to come together and really face like real problems coming at all of us, that I hope that I can point out, that'll be plain to see for everyone. So check this out. So let's jump in right into some of the wickedness that I was talking about. And so I come across this, and it's saying, and some realizations came out of this, but it's like this is the mask that's really needed to prevent you from getting the COVID-19 or whatever. So now it's real crazy that they got this one named like this, because this is a mask we know all too well. But it says that this is a mind control device, part of a psyop. And this I can really see because, like, in the end, it's pretty crazy that they would label that as a psyop. But it makes all too much sense now that by not wearing the mask, you're easily marking yourself. I mean, there's no doubt we're under constant surveillance. They're always watching us through some kind of cameras. And the fact, if you aren't wearing this mask, you stand out as a person that's, that's like bucking the system. Like, you're not falling into the place that they want you to fall in. So, it all boils down to some, George Orwell shit. Like, if you're not wearing this, then, you're identifying yourself as a person that doesn't want to follow the rules that they're trying to dictate for us at the time. So these masks definitely have a purpose, but it's not to stop COVID-19. This is what I wasn't aware of, that the Senate voted to keep surveilling your online life without a warrant. I wasn't real aware that they were like looking at everybody's, what everybody looks up or does on the internet. I wasn't aware that they were doing that to begin with. And it's pretty creepy that they would even want to do that. Many senators wanted to forbid the government from secretly collecting information about your internet habits. But an amendment failed by just one vote. By just one vote, huh? During the coronavirus, many of us had vastly increased the time we spent online and moved many of the activities from outside of our homes into the confines of the internet. In the middle of this, and with this shift in mind, the Senate voted on Wednesday not to protect Americans' internet browsing and search history data from secret warrantless surveillance by law enforcement. This measure needed 60 votes to pass, and it got 59. I'd really like to know the 59 senators. The vote was for an amendment to the controversial Patriot Act, which would have expressly forbid the internet browsing history from what the government is allowed to collect through approval of a secret court. Currently, there's no such provision, which means there's nothing stopping the government from doing so. The government has an established history of using this method to collect certain types of data about millions of Americans without their knowledge. There is little information that is more personal than your web browsing history. Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat who sponsored the amendment, told Recode, if you know a person that is visiting a website of a mental health professional or a substance abuse support group or a particular political organization or dating site, you know a tremendous amount of private and personal information about that individual. Not to really be putting no one in particular out there, but man, the Democrats, like, and I never noticed it till this election. I never noticed how much that they seem to be like, like basically communist in the end. Like, most of this, law changes and everything that's going down is always approved by the Democrats. And I just found that, like, I just wanted to include that. It's pretty strange that, it's always boiling down to that. The Senate has voted to reauthorize the USA Freedom Act, bringing the surveillance bill closer to becoming law. The USA Freedom Reauthorization Act restores the government's powers that expired in March with Section 215 of the Patriot Act, while the Senate adopted an amendment to expand oversight. It shot down a proposal that would have restricted a warrantless collection of the internet search and browsing data. So I don't see absolutely no reason, that goes way off of, the Constitution. Like, it boils down to like they want to search inside of your head. And I can't think of no reason whatsoever they would want to do that unless they got full intentions of starting to do some shady shit to us. There'd be no reason that they would have to know our innermost thoughts unless they were going to start pulling some, shit that's like never been pulled before. Because then, if they were like, then they could easily pick people out who are dissidents. And, I mean, this goes like way beyond what democracy was ever started for. I mean, to really have to have access to a person's private thoughts, I just can't see why that would be necessary unless they plan to do some diabolical shit to us. Then it would, make sense for them to have private files on how everybody thinks, how everybody believes, as if they plan doing some things that have never been done. But moving right along to my real, unfavorite family, while many sectors of British society have seen their living standards plummet, with the elderly severely neglected, a national health service in decline, and homelessness on the increase, the British government BIA Unicade has pledged 144 billion to Gavi, which will be hosting the Gavi Pledging Conference, which is due to take place in June 2020. The conference promises to bring together political leaders, civil society, public and private donors, vaccine manufacturers, and governments to support Gavi. The Vaccine Alliance, which boasts has helped vaccinate almost half of the world's children against deadly and debilitating infectious diseases. The claim will be met with praise from the pro-vaccine lobby, but concerns over the efficiency and safety of these mass vaccination programs must be taken into account, particularly when tested in poorer developing countries. So I'm sure at this point, basically, it's almost common knowledge that Bill Gates, like, is all thirsty to always vaccinate everybody, and his vaccines haven't turned out too well with some developing countries. Like, a lot of people died. Like, in India, a lot of young girls were basically sterilized. The ability to have children was taken away from them. And then, and then now Bill Gates's TED Talk like already makes sense that he did a couple years back when he was saying if he that it was a problem with, overpopulation. And if we worked on vaccines real hard, we could decrease the population by 15%. I mean, it's a pretty scary. I mean, vaccines are supposed to, keep people from getting sick. And he's talking about his vaccines are going to lower the world's population. I think they're all the way around. The whole family's sick. I mean, the dad, he started out, Bill Gates' dad, basically set up Planned Parenthood, which is abortion clinics mainly in like the poorer neighborhoods in the United States. And as much as he claims to be a philanthropist, check this out. Global vaccination market revenue worldwide is projected to reach $59.2 billion by 2020. That number may well increase with the arrival of COVID-19. The British government's invested in Gavi along with the vaccine promoter Bill Gates must again raise issue of conflicts of interest. To what extent is the British government protecting its own assets, forcing the lockdown upon its population? Vaccines are set to be a major source of income with the world's largest pharmaceutical corporation. And the British government is invested in that lucrative future. So as much as he brags to engage in philanthropy, I mean, there's quite a bit of money to be made into this. But, he's definitely far from being a doctor, but it's still a fact that a lot of these doctors are being silenced. But there is a lot of doctors. I haven't featured these two on any of my videos yet, but there's a lot of doctors that think that COVID-19 isn't the deadly disease that it's being portrayed out to be.
Experts are wrong. What if quarantining the healthy doesn't actually save lives? What if wearing a mask in public is not effective? My name is Dr. Jeff Barkey, and I'm here representing thousands of physicians across the country whose voices are being silenced because we don't agree with the mainstream media and the experts who are telling us what to do.
What I just got to what I can't understand on that is, like, since when is anybody's voices silenced in America? Like, when did this rule come about? Because it's something that I have never seen before. I mean, it's supposed to be like, freedom to say what you want. Like, they're being silenced. I mean, it's insane.
Never in the history of this great republic have we quarantined the healthy. Never in the history of this great republic have we told churchgoers that it's illegal for you to exercise your First Amendment right of freedom of religion. Yet at the same time, it's essential to keep pot dispensaries open. Never in the history of this country have we been told that you can't go to church because it's not essential, but you can go get an abortion because that's essential. Never before in our country have we let criminals out of jail, but we've told you you can't exercise your Second Amendment right and protect yourself by purchasing a firearm. When liquor stores are deemed essential, but your businesses are deemed non-essential, there's something wrong going on. The Declaration of Independence and our U.S. Constitution was never designed to restrain the people. It was designed to restrain the government.
Or flu. But ER doctors now, my friends that I talk to say, it's interesting. When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that? Why are we being pressured to add COVID? To maybe increase the numbers and make it look a little bit worse than it is? I think so.
And that's what it is. I mean, they've been overinflating the death counts with it. And, because they got other agendas in mind, they plan on using this to, take a lot more of our rights away than they're taking right now. They trying to, they going way further than just a couple of amendments they trying to break. They trying to abolish the Constitution altogether. But this guy is on Trump's team now. I mean, he's the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. He is, as you'll see right here with his biography coming up, the 70th United States Secretary of State, under Trump appointed him, but he was also the 6th director of the CIA. So they got an ex-CIA agent, easing into a position that, basically has got almost as much power as the vice president. The Secretary of State's a pretty serious job. So we got a CIA op that has stepped in that appointed position. And then, here's just, a little bit him on himself.
What's the cadet motto at West Point? He will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. Mulvaney, that the coronavirus.
Yeah, I couldn't really understand the crowds clapping to that. He's glorifying it. The lied, cheated, and stole. The CIA, our government officials still, man, it's pretty crazy. But, and then he was getting, called out.
That the coronavirus is the hoax of the day. The State Department is doing everything it can to protect American citizens around the world. Do you believe coronavirus is the hoax? I'm not going to comment on what others are saying. I'm just asking you, do you believe the coronavirus is the hoax? I'm just telling you what the Secretary of State's doing. Do you believe the coronavirus?
I mean, he's asking them, flat out. Is it a hoax or not? A live exercise.
That's right, folks. We're working to keep people safe. You can't even answer that question. Yeah, it's not even a gotcha question. It's a gotcha moment. It's not useful. Just answer that question. We're taking it seriously. This is a serious. At 12:15 today, are you in fact yourself speaking at CPAC? At 12:15 today, are you speaking? Yes, I am. I'm planning. All right, so you can only give 2 hours to this bipartisan group of members of Congress, and instead of answering questions on life and death issues from a bipartisan group of America's representatives, you're going to go talk to a special interest group. Yes. You, sir, represent all Americans, not a special interest group. It is shameful. You can't even answer basic questions. I yield back.
The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world. And that puts a special obligation to make sure that the data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need exercise here to get this right. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. It was a.
You hear Trump saying he didn't really he wasn't aware it was an exercise. He wished he would have known that, is what he said. But
it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that technically, even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
Right, stop the crime.
Okay, man, I mean, it's just going back to like where, they blocking everybody's like YouTube and Facebook on that fact, like, that they just don't want to release. And like, just like, they've our social media and YouTube has made like, deemed like Fauci like gods basically, or the guy from the CDC. Like, you are not even allowed to have no other narrative aside of what they're saying, or they're deleting your channel, or they're deleting that post off of social media, like, period. And that's just another alarming thing that, that they're getting like so like involved in our social media this much these days, like, especially with this COVID-19. Like, a lot of issues are coming up with freedom of the press and freedom of speech, which is fundamental constitutional laws that they're shitting all over lately. And I mean, this is old. It goes back, but if you watch, it's definitely applicable to what's going on today, to what we're facing.
StopTheCrime.net, or she refers to it anyway, and war, which called for control of the mass conducted using subjective biological warfare fought with silent weapons. This book contains an introductory description of this war, its strategies, and its weaponry. May 1979, number 74-1120. Security. It is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of a society, i.e. the engineering of a social automation system's silence weapons on a national or worldwide scale without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, i.e. slavery and genocide. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny, otherwise it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic war. Furthermore, when any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without full knowledge and consent of the public uses such knowledge and methodologies for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between said person or group of persons and the public. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others of similar intellectual capacity without the loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. Historical introduction. Silent weapon technology has evolved from operational research, a strategic and tactical methodology developed under the military management in England during World War II. The original purpose of operations research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies, i.e. logistics. It was soon recognized by those in positions of power that the same methods might be useful for totally controlling a society, but better tools were necessary. Social engineering, the analysis and automation of a society, requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly changing economic information, or data. So a high-speed, computerized data processing system was necessary, which could race ahead of the society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. Relay computers were too slow, but yet it makes
I've skipped through quite a bit of this because it goes on for a long time, but it's definitely something I recommend you checking into. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It's real old, but it definitely pertains to exactly what's going on with us today. because this being a plan that they have had for a long time now.
Unmistakable noise of data instead of individuals as society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking the components. In the science of physical mechanics, the phenomenon of it is possible to discover critical vibrations in the structure of the airframe, which either vibrations of the engine or aeolian vibrations of the wings or a combination of the two might reinforce, resulting in a resonant self-destruction of the airframe in flight as an aircraft. From the standpoint of engineering, this means that the strengths and weaknesses of the structure of the airframe in terms of vibrational energy can be discovered and manipulated. Applications in economics. To use this method or airframe shock testing in economic engineering, the prices of commodities are shocked and the public consumer reaction is monitored. The resulting echoes of the economic shock are interpreted theoretically by computers, and the economic structure of the economy is thus discovered. It is by this process that partial differential and difference matrices are discovered that define the family household and make possible its evaluation as an economic industry, dissipative consumer structure. Then the response of the household to future shocks can be predicted and manipulated, and society becomes a well-regulated animal with its reins under the control of a sophisticated computer-regulated social engineering bookkeeping system. Eventually, every individual element of the structure comes under computer control through a knowledge of personal preferences. Such knowledge, guaranteed by computer association of consumer preferences, UPC codes, zebra stripe pricing codes on packages with identified consumers.
See, if you study into this, silent weapons for quiet wars. I mean, I skipped over some in the middle, so there's a lot that, I bypassed that you might want to research for yourself. But I think they were pretty much, and this was made a long time ago, that they were talking about establishing, Facebook, like even back then.
Association with the use of a credit card and later a permanent tattooed body.
That goal, and from the competitive anarchy of
this is just gonna go right on to the report from Iron Mountain, which is also like old news. Like this has been leaked stuff that has got out for a while now, but still I think applies like majorly to what's going on.
Anarchy of nations or nation states. Therefore, the age of nations must end, and the era of humanity must begin. You will find there's a constant call for the merging of all humanity. Here's a resolution adopted in the United Nations. This is what it says: regulation, limitation, and balanced reduction of all armed forces and all armaments. The all armaments means your weapons that you have in your closet for your own defense. It includes handguns and rifles and all kinds of things. Here's your blueprint for world peace, which was issued also in 1961, concurrently as this move towards putting us under the United Nations. You'll find that as the United States and the Russian military are to be reduced, the UN is consistently brought up to a higher and higher position. The only thing we are left with are internal security forces. Under the Freedom from War, this is a packet issued by the federal government to go along with 87-297. In 1961, Public Law 87-2. In other words, it is a deliberate effort to bring in another system for the first before the Congress and the Senate. They implement the Antichrist system.
And Public Law 87297 has been updated. There are numerous updates. You will, if you go search them out, Public Law 101-216, for example, has been updated. Here's another one. I have today signed H.R. 1495, the Arms Control and Disarmament Amendment Acts of 1989. It authorizes the fiscal appropriations to get this thing underway. Now, the problem with it is the Bill of Rights in Amendment 2, the right to bear arms, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. In other words, in reality, you cannot infringe that right in any way, method, or manner. The only way a people can remain free is to hold in their power the weapons necessary to secure their free state. This amendment deals with the international security of the United States from its own government. In other words, this amendment was to secure the people's freedom from their own government, from an internal government takeover. This right is not there so that you can go hunting or for the other excuses made. It is there to prevent the government of the United States from becoming a dictatorship by treason. In other words, by betrayal of the Constitution of the United States. Now, in order to merge the United States into the United Nations requires a total betrayal of the Constitution, which guarantees you a free state through the right to bear arms. You see the connection? The United Nations is a communist, illuminist, Masonic world dictatorship. And there are no freedoms, hence they have to get the guns to eliminate the free state nation guarantee in our Constitution. The Iron Mountain Report, then, is a report in reality on how to circumvent the Constitution of the United States. And in reality, it's a document of treason. Of how the rich men of the earth are actually going to divert the attentions of the people away so that they can get this done. The guidelines given by the government for the Iron Mountain Report: 1, military-style objectivity; 2, avoidance of any value assumptions; and 3, the inclusion of all relevant data. And this is a very important part of this report, is the avoidance of all value assumptions. Operates outside the normal economic supply and demand system. Warfare creates an artificial demand. In other words, the war system itself having huge military of power. In other words, we have to keep the war system going in order to remain in control. Keep war until all substitutes are in place and running so we don't lose our rulership. In other words, those that are in power are going to remain in power. They've got to figure out a way to do that. So they're going to de-escalate the war system as they bring in a peace system. And the peace system is going to radically
seaport town of decades to centuries before those are removed. Researching safe.
All land will be under strict eco-controls because, after all, we are now involved in the middle of an eco-emergency, and it's nothing but a scam. It's really a debt for land swamp is another part of it. The international bankers loan and control the monies to all the countries, and through interest have driven them into huge debt status. The debt of the United States is in the trillions. The bankers then come forward with a new plan. They will take the nation's land and then they will cancel the debt of that nation. It is called a debt for land swap. This land will be held by a World Conservation Bank, owned, of course, by the rich men of the earth.
But I ran through that quickly, too, as to save, your time. But this goes on with another guy I've just got hip to recently that's got a lot of real good stuff to say. But he says that, says that Iron Mountain is very much operational and up and running, and that here's what we got to look at for our last little bit of time, that apparently the Earth might even be going on.
And look at this. The military, and this was a year or so after Janet Napolitano said a natural disaster is coming. The only natural disaster you can predict years in advance because of geometry is something coming from outer space. A comet, asteroid, a rogue planet. And this base, which was closed for 10 years, suddenly they decide to reopen it. Let me jump ahead to this scripture here. This is a prophecy of the end times from Revelation 6:15. It says, then the kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, right? We're talking about Cheyenne Mountain. That's the kings and the generals, right? Both slave and free, hid in caves and among the rocks of the mountains. Well, what about that? Isn't that amazing? The kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, the rich, they hid in caves and rocks and the mountains. And what a coincidence. Cheyenne Mountain, they've opened up. And I assure you, it's not to protect you from a flu virus. And now look at this, another coincidence. Most telescopes throughout the world have suddenly been closed. Even after most telescopes have closed, they're assuring us that asteroid hunting continues, even after most telescopes have closed. Isn't that interesting? So at the time when something is coming from outer space, according to Janet Napolitano, a natural disaster that you could know about years toward the Earth, they would start. What a coincidence. And now look at this. This is why I believe the year 2022 is something to keep an eye out for. I said, if 2022 is the year of Planet X or a comet or asteroid coming toward the Earth, they would start preparing for it 2 years in advance. And what happens exactly in March, 2 years before 2022? They're doing this drill, this live exercise of a pandemic, shelter in place, a cover story for the real reason why they're doing it. Now they're telling us here that there are 2 stars, right? This is Science Magazine, right? sciencemag.org. 2 stars are going to collide in the sky in what year? 2022. Isn't that interesting? Wait till you see all the stuff that's coming up that's going to happen in 2022. Now, how they could know with the speed of light and stars far away that the light hasn't arrived here yet, that the alleged collision hasn't happened yet, how they could calculate that, we're going to have 2 stars collide, and they say it's going to be the brightest object in the sky next to the sun and the moon. Remember, Planet X will eventually be seen. Even if chemtrails are trying to block it out, even if telescopes are being shut down, eventually it will be able to be seen by the human eye. And now they're telling us, well, don't worry about it. It's not Planet X. It's nothing dangerous. It's just 2 stars randomly colliding in a galaxy far, far away. What year do they say this is going to happen? In 2022. Oh, and now something else. Hey, they found a comet. Inbound. An inbound comet. If you read this, it's coming to the heart of the solar system. The heart of the solar system. I would call the heart of the solar system planet Earth, wouldn't you? You can read this article. I'll link down to it. And when is this comet coming to the heart of the solar system? In 2022. Well, what do you know? There's a star's going to collide in 2022. We got a comet coming in 2022. Oh my goodness. And now they're going to launch this satellite, this weather radar system, hopefully by the end of 2021, because they're getting ready for 2022. Got to make sure no coronal mass ejection hits us in 2022. So our deadline for this radar system to catch that is the year before 2021. And look at this. They're also going to send out a special mission to an asteroid in 2022. It looks like a lot's happening. They're getting this radar system ready by the end of 2021. We got A comet coming in 2022. Two stars are going to collide in 2022. Hey, and also, what another coincidence. In 2022, they have a special mission to an asteroid. So we have an asteroid, we have a comet, and we have two stars exploding all in 2022. It looks like there's going to be an infamous year. Oh, and look at this. They're saying that the sun is actually getting cooler. It's called the Murata minimum. And guess what happened the last time we had a cooling of the sun? Look down here. We had a pandemic happened because there was less ultraviolet radiation hitting the earth, killing viruses. Remember, this is a live drill. So they're planning, in apparently 2022, there'll be less solar activity having something to do with the incoming object heading toward the earth. And they're already telling us in advance it's going to cause a pandemic. Isn't that interesting? And what else? Oh, a comet is going to break up into a meteor shower in 2022. So we've got a meteor shower in 2022 right there. We've got an asteroid is going to have a special mission in 2022 to an asteroid. Hey, we're going to have a radar system in by the beginning of 2022 for some comet coming in 2022 and two colliding stars coming in 2022, and a meteor shower in 2022. Isn't that interesting? And now they're talking about an insurance policy for space. They're going to smash this in, asteroid. And of course, when's the year for this big asteroid approaching? 2022. How about that? And now here is somebody discovered that the world banking system, I don't know a whole lot about it, but we know it has to do with the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary Fund. They said there's going to be a complete reset in 2022. And by the end, maybe it's really Planet X. Another special mission with an asteroid in 2022. And by the end of 2021 or 2022, all constitutional liberties taken away. I don't think our founding fathers said, the exception is if people get sick. No, I don't think that was the case. And the Pope cannot say, I have suspended the Bible. That's not possible. And yet law enforcement officers are telling people around the world that these come.
So overall, this video pretty much, it touches base on a lot of my videos so far, because I got a lot of videos about Nibiru and, a lot of videos about COVID-19 and, pretty much the only thing I didn't really go back on in this is the 5G, and which I think's all definitely part of this too. But I appreciate you and taking the time to watch, my video. Definitely check out the report from Iron Mountain and check out my videos on Nibiru. Plenty of information on the internet also, and y'all have a blessed day.